This is the Art Beauty Podcast where we are always reaching for truth in beauty. Remember, the brands on this show are not paying to be here, so we get to ask the questions you want answered because you deserve to be informed so you can make the best choices for yourself. With that said, I'm Amber, and today my fabulous co-host is Keta Burke-Williams. She is the founder of Ourside Perfumes, and I am so excited to have her on today. This, I'm telling you, has become the scent that is like, I'm most excited to add to my fragrance wardrobe. Welcome to the show, Keta.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to connect and chat more.
I am too. So I got to tell you, we've done a number of podcasts on fragrance, and certainly fragrance is something that is so personal, and that's hard to describe. It's hard to sell. You have to smell fragrance. But this is a fragrance, and I'll tell you, for me, it is Dusk. You have three incredible fragrances, which we'll be talking all about. But this is one that I have been wearing, and people will literally stop me and say, "Oh my God, what are you wearing?" And for me, that's just like one of the highest compliments, and I kind of love that.
Yes, I love that too. And that makes me so happy that you're a Dusk fan. That is the second fragrance we formulated. And I also love it. I think it's kind of the it person scent. It like shows that you are all about it without trying too hard. And I love it for like a night out, a date night. Dusk is that girl.
I mean, I'm wearing it right now, just in my house. It's like one of those fragrances that you're like, oh, and it feels luxurious. I'm going to get into all of the fragrances, but I found that your story is so interesting. And forgive me for saying this, I feel like, the traditional perfumers, right? Well, a lot of them are men, right? A lot of them are working for
Yes.
some of like the big fragrance houses. I would love to know how you got into fragrances. Like, what was your journey?
Yeah, definitely. I think fragrance can be a little pale and male, as I like to
Mhm.
say. But for me, my love of fragrance, I think, has pretty much always existed. Some of my earliest memories have scent associated with them, like smelling honeysuckle at our house in Ohio, or the smell of hot dogs in a parking lot. Like all of those kind of nostalgic scents, those are part of my memories. And for me, I was that girl who never really fit in. I grew up in this multicultural household. My mom is Jamaican and she's an immigrant. My dad was Black from the South, but I grew up in this very small suburb and never really fit in anyone's box. And so I looked for escapes. At first that escape was through figure skating, and then through reading, and then later through scent. So whether it was going to Bath and Body Works and smelling the cucumber melon lotion, or burning candles with my mom on the weekend, for me, scent was this thing where I could close my eyes, breathe deep, and just for a little be transported somewhere else. So that was kind of the earliest inklings of my love for scent. But to your point, it's been a journey. I never thought that I could do anything with it. So I followed kind of a straight and narrow path, and I went to college and I worked for two big corporations before finally being at business school, where I had a conversation with my sister that sparked the idea for what would become Ourside.
Okay, wait a minute. So but you went to business school. Were you thinking that you were going to be in sort of cosmetics, fragrance?
No,
What were you like, girl? What were you thinking?
I know, right? I was not thinking that. I did not think I would do anything with entrepreneurship. And I am somebody who's existed kind of outside the beauty community. I don't wear a ton of makeup. I like it. I'm just bad at applying it.
Girl, you don't need it.
And
You
thank
look
you.
radiant and beautiful.
Thank you. And for me, I've always loved scent, but I've kind of loved men's fragrances. I liked buying oils from the farmer's market and kind of experimenting with things that weren't really what was offered. So I never really felt like I was represented. And it was a conversation with my sister, Kaja. She's 3 years younger than me, so she's kind of on this Gen Z cusp,
Okay.
where we realized that she had gone into a Credo beauty store, and she had made a lot of swaps for conscious beauty products, and she had stopped wearing fragrance because she was like, traditional fragrance kind of gives me headaches, and we have asthma and allergies. She's like, it's just like too much. I don't really feel seen or represented by these bigger brands. I don't feel like their values have really come up to date. And so I think I'm just going to, sit it out and not wear fragrance anymore. And I was like, well, that's so disappointing, because we see all of these new creators and new visions in color cosmetics and skincare and hair care. So like, why doesn't that exist yet in fragrance? And we decided that like maybe we should be the people to bring that to life, which was this crazy, wild idea. And so it really started as this tiny idea. I got a grant from Harvard to start working on the idea, start learning more since I'm not from the industry, and did like all the research, all of the things. And that's kind of how we got our start. And for me, I think at Ourside, it's so important that we're kind of reimagining fragrance from the who gets to be represented, who is celebrated, whose stories are told. To your point, we work with a perfumer that's U.S. based. Our manufacturer is in the Bronx because we want to show that luxurious products exactly can be created in unexpected places, right? So we're all about doing things just a little bit different.
I have to say, I love the Bronx. I started my career as a news reporter in the Bronx at News 12. So that always has a
Wow.
place in my heart. But when
Yes.
I found out that you were manufacturing this and producing these in small batches in your lab in the Bronx, I was like, yes, yes, yes. Got to give a shout out to,
Yes.
where my business started. So you do all this research, you had a grant, and what was that research? Were you kind of looking in like, who do I formulate? What is that process like?
It was a lot, and I think it was one of those things where looking back, you're like, why did I think I could do that? I'm glad I didn't know what I know now. But it was a lot of just reading, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, anything I could do to learn more since I came from outside beauty. A lot of my experience, I had an understanding of kind of what retail looks like from the grocery side, but it's not beauty, right? And so for me, it was trying to get in touch with manufacturers, with suppliers of components like the glass bottles, to understand, try to talk to other founders who maybe haven't done something in fragrance but did something in skincare or color cosmetics, to understand their journey, and really just try to build my network of people with a wealth of knowledge. Since even though we launched this January and things are going well, I'm still always learning, and I'm looking to partner with people who know the craft. So for me, it was a lot of being humble and a lot of being really open, and then having to trust my gut, that the ideas I have for these fragrances and for doing something a little different than has been done, that it is still good and it's right and I should trust it. And so that was also a big piece of the learning puzzle.
I mean, I'm telling you, I am blown away by all you've achieved. When you were reaching out to people on LinkedIn, and I think this is really good for anybody to hear, no matter whether you want to go into beauty, fragrance, or any sort of industry, did you find that people were helpful?
I think so, right? I think of it like you might as well shoot your shot. You're going to get turned down. You're going to get people who ignore you. You're going to get people who don't have the feedback that you want. But I found for the most part, people were willing to help and share their perspective and share their advice. And honestly, I was floored by how helpful people were willing to be, especially since I'm trying to break into an industry that typically doesn't have a lot of people that are women or that are people of color. And so I was really appreciative of kind of how the village came to support me, since although I'm a founder doing this alone, it is definitely a community effort.
I love that you're saying that, because it does. It takes a village. And I find, I remember one of the things going back to my Bronx days when I was a reporter, I was so blown away because you would show up to a story, a live breaking story. And I always thought, from watching TV, that every reporter would be like very quiet. But I found that people were so helpful, and they're like, what did you hear? What did you hear? What did you hear? Because at the end of the day, we all just needed to get the story out. We wanted to get things done, and we want to celebrate each other. So it's good to know that other founders, other people were willing to help you. So how did you linked up with a perfumer? Is it Danny Doe?
It's Daryl Doe, yes.
Daryl Doe. Thank you. Okay. So how did you meet him, and what was that like?
Yeah, so it came through kind of the roundabout of connection. Basically, how I got in touch with him is through the grapevine of the network. We were really fortunate to be a part of Amy Lou at Tower 28. She put on this program called Clean Beauty Summer School, and we got into it the first year that she did it. And we were the only like pre-product brand. We had this inkling of an idea of like what we wanted to be. I think she was the first person to really say, "Hey, you have something. I see some possibility." So that really solidified for us that we could do something. But through that program, I got put in touch with a mentor who put me in touch with somebody else who recommended Daryl. And, through that grapevine, I was able to meet him first. I think it was over Zoom in a call because it was during COVID. Eventually, masks on, 6 feet apart, and felt like he really saw our story and what we really wanted to do. And I appreciated that. I loved that he is, a classically trained perfumer, has all of the knowledge, has all the skills, has kind of been a ghost perfumer behind a lot of interesting scents, and somebody who I felt like was really willing to hear what I had to say and what I wanted to do, and was open to doing things a little bit differently. And so for me, that kind of sealed the deal.
I mean, I was doing a little digging on his Instagram, and which I love because there's a few pictures of him in the lab coat with all the bottles
Yes.
behind. So when you finally like went into that meeting, are like, where does one even begin? Right. I mean, are you like, okay, you've got your bottom notes, your top notes, your mid note. Like, do you kind of tell him a story and
How
did
did
he
that
come and he
work?
was like, here's 10? Or are you in there like sniffing tons of bottles and
Mm.
you're like, I like this, I don't like this. Like, what is that like?
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons why I was so excited and why I love working with Daryl is that I am the driver. I am that creative director, and he is a perfumer who's putting like the chemistry and the magic together to like make something beautiful. Whereas some fragrance houses do it a different way, where they say, "Here are 10 scents that we think you might like, and let's adjust these." I love working from scratch because I have a really clear idea of what I want. So, for example, Moon Dust, the first fragrance that we formulated, I knew that I wanted it to have citrus. I knew that I wanted it to be kind of bright and heady on the top. I knew that I wanted some cooling spice. I knew that I wanted Palo Santo and vetiver in it. And so he helped me round it out with what else could kind of be a fit, and how what we'll use as naturals, what we'll use as synthetics. But I was pretty specific about kind of how I wanted it to smell. And I also had a story. Each of our stories is inspired by, each of our scents is inspired by a story and a daydream. And so I
Okay.
think that was also really helpful to give him a perspective of, this is how I want people to feel when they're wearing our scent, not just how I want it to smell. So that gave us room for conversation. And it was that exploration of me learning, me having to let go of the reins a little bit and seeing how he interprets what I have to say.
Okay, well, let's get into the stories, but before we do that, I have to ask you, like when you would go into these meetings, would he have like 10, 20, 30 different things for you to smell and like
How does that go? How does it work? Yeah. So at the start, the first meetings are a lot of, it's almost like dating, right? It's a lot of like listening to what I have to say, trying to interpret what I say versus what I mean, because I don't have a lot of the technical fragrance, terminology and knowledge. And then in the subsequent meetings, it's, hey, here is what they call a mod, basically a sample of what we interpreted after all of our conversations that we think it might be. Then I smell it, he smells it, and I interpret it, and I say, well, I wanted actually like a little less bergamot, or I
okay.
want you to bring up the mint because I want that fresh smell to come through a little bit more. Let's go back to the drawing board. So then we go back to the drawing board, they adjust, they take meticulous notes of what they adjust. And then we come again, and we do that until we feel like the fragrance is in a spot where like, this is it, this is what I wanted. And that's how it goes.
Oh my gosh. I mean, this sounds one like a lot of fun, but also a lot of stress. So let's start with the three fragrances. So you started with Moon Dust, that was your first. What was the story
Mhm.
behind that?
Yeah, so moon dust for me, it's all about this feeling where, I don't know if you've ever felt it, but like almost like you're connected to the earth, but also to something above. And so for me, it's almost like this tamer Burning Man feeling. I can read the daydream, or you can go to our website and read it, but it was really about this feeling of almost just being in awe of everything that's there. So I grew up in Ohio, and in the summers, you might walk barefoot because it wasn't as crazy as New York, on a road, right? And you might be standing on this warm road and feeling it under your feet. And you look above, and like the sky is just this incredible sky, and you almost feel like it's pulling you up. And I wanted the fragrance to feel like that, where it's this moment where you almost feel suspended, because the citrus and the mint is kind of heady, and it's making you feel like you're looking above, and the vetiver and the Palo Santo is grounding you. So it's this weird contradiction of sorts, but that somehow works. And so that was Moon Dust. It's a lot of just explaining the feelings, but that's how Moon Dust came to life, and that's that feeling that I wanted people to get.
But it does have, and it's so funny now that you say it. I kind of smell like almost like a citrus, like a fresh cut grass.
Yes.
You know, I see
It's
that.
very green and earthy.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so, so Dusk, which by far, you
Dusk.
know, I'm sorry to say, but like, I got this
It's good.
discovery
We all
kit.
have our favorites.
Dusk is my jam. Like it is
Yes.
and I feel like I haven't had a scent that could be like my signature scent, but I think that this is going to be it.
Yay. That's good to hear.
Super
Size is
excited
on
about.
the way. Yay. Okay.
So, so what was the sort of story behind that or the feeling behind that?
Yeah. So Dusk, I would say, is almost like if you like smoky or boozy scents, Dusk is kind of like that, but it's not super sweet. Since for me, sometimes, really sweet fragrances overwhelm me and give me headaches. So I wanted to think about how we could recreate that. And for Dusk, the feeling in the story is about almost like if you were at this bar, maybe like this bourbon bar, let's say. And so you're kind of smelling like this boozy bourbon vibe, and you have this leather jacket, right? That almost smells like a little bit of like smoke and the bourbon. And you leave the bar, you walk outside, somehow you make it to this like clearing of grass, and you're walking through the grass and you walk towards this lake, and in the distance you see people having a bonfire, but
Oh,
it's that feeling of like a little bit of smokiness, a little bit of boozy, a little bit of green because you're walking through the grass. And that is like the Dusk vibe of like it's the perfect accomplice for those long nights that turn into early mornings. And yeah, that's Dusk.
I mean, I'm just laughing now because my husband has become like a whiskey drinker, and like as you're saying all this, I'm like, I wonder if this is just sort of, you know, why I'm so attracted to this is like where I am in my life right
Yes.
now. We're about to go to Japan, and I was like looking at these whiskey bars, so now I'm like, oh, it
Yes.
all makes sense, right?
It's all
Like having this
aligning.
moment, but maybe that's what it is too, because I think that, you know, when I was younger, I loved like a lot of those really sweet vanilla-y scents, and I still
Mhm.
do. Like I loved Angel. I just, you know,
Mhm.
but now it's like a little too much. So I think
Yeah,
sometimes it
everything changes.
changes a little bit. But I will say this too, because I just sprayed moon dust in my hand, which is you have to try these, right? Because perfume will also react with your body chemistry and smell different.
Exactly.
But all three fragrances have very distinct and different scent profiles.
Yeah, that was the goal. I wanted to create this variety, especially since we only came out with three. I wanted to make sure that, for the different moods and your different vibes, that there would be a scent that represents that. So moon dust to me is like kind of like the everyday. If you're just taking a walk outside, like you could spray moon dust. It's almost you could spray it as like a room spray kind of feel. Dusk is for like the date nights when you want to feel more sultry, and nostalgia is like, if you need a warm embrace, or for the sticky summer days, like nostalgia. I layered nostalgia and sunbum sunscreen, and actually that was like an amazing layering combination that I did not expect.
I'm gonna spray it on this hand. So let's talk about nostalgia.
Yeah, so nostalgia is the third fragrance that we formulated, and
Nice.
that one is actually inspired by a story that my mom would tell my sister and me a lot growing up about her. This is like in the 1980s, visiting Tunisia. She was, long story short, basically a backup dancer in France, and went to this show that she was dancing for, basically for this like singer in Tunisia. And she, after the show, went back to her hotel room and then decided she like wanted to go on a walk, which I'm like, at night alone and like as a 20 something, I don't know if that was like the safest, but anyway, so she went on a walk, and she talks about opening this gate, this like white gate, and all of these jasmine plants were cascading down, and it's by the water. And so she smells basically like the kind of like ocean breeze, um, the jasmine plants, and kind of like the earth. For me, I wanted to interpret her story in our own way and bring, jasmine to kind of be more modern, because I think there are a lot of great jasmine scents out there, but a lot of them are super powdery and kind of like stuck in the 80s, and that's great. They all have their moment, but I wanted to reinterpret what jasmine means. And so for us, this is like making jasmine kind of that sticky, sweet, um, kind of like woody and earthy, dry down kind of vibe of like how it might be to actually experience jasmine with all of these other things around you.
You know, you just brought up a great point. When I have to do say it, it does smell, you know, now that you're kind of knowing and like, describing the fragrances, and it also has like a bright citrusy feeling.
Yes, it
Um,
does.
you know, you hit something though that I find is very interesting. Some of these, older fragrance houses, they have a more powdery, like almost an older scent to them. I feel like your perfumes really have a very modern, fresh vibe on them. Um,
Thank you.
which, and I guess it's powdery. I was trying to like think about like, how is this different? But it does. It has like a very hip, sort of fresh vibe.
Thank you.
So you launch with the three. And what does it mean to be making small batch doses in the Bronx?
Yeah, so for us, I think it's a few things. We wanted to show that luxury can be made in unexpected places, right? A lot of great fragrance has been made in grass, but if you think about, a lot of fragrance has been around for a long time,
Yeah.
right? And so I wanted fragrance that represents more stories than just what's out there. And I thought one way to do that is from, how the fragrances smell, but also how they're made. So for us, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not creating fragrance in a whole new way, but we are using elements that already exist, pairing them in interesting ways, and making sure that we're representing people who maybe didn't have the chance to be represented yet. And so for us, that means making things consciously. We make all of our fragrances in the Bronx, to your point, in small batches because we care about quality. We use really high quality natural ingredients, and we use a lot of them in our fragrances also because we want our fragrances to have good lasting power. But I think we're at this moment, this inflection point where we're showing that luxury can also be kind of forward thinking, and it can also mean, conscious and good to the earth and the environment. So we're trying to do all of that as a small brand.
I love that. And I saw that, you've had some sellouts.
Yes.
How that must feel amazing. And probably
Yes.
also, from a business point, you're like a little scary, but I mean,
Yes.
to sell to sell out, that must have been, how did that feel when that happened?
Exciting. And I think I was just really thankful of how people came out to support us, right? We had this goal and this dream and this vision, and who knows if it's going to resonate. And so to me, that meant that our story and what we're doing and how the fragrances smell, that people like it and that people are coming out to support us. And so I'm just really thankful for that. To your point, it was a little bit scary getting things back in stock, but I think it means that we're doing something right, that people are noticing, and that people like what we have to put out, which is the goal. Since of course it started with my inspiration, but I hope that it speaks to more people than just me. So it's been really exciting. We won, a beauty award for best new fragrance. Yay! And I think we're just getting started. But to me, I'm just really excited for all the support we've gotten so far.
I mean, and you're at Credo Beauty, which is kind of a huge nod as a new
Yes.
business. Yeah.
Yes, that has been amazing, especially since they're part of that, original story and inspiration. So to have them as our first, big retail partner just means a lot. And I love that they have really high standards in terms of what it means to be conscious. So for us, that's a great partner. I love visiting the stores. I love that no matter who you are, you feel welcome in the stores. And I love that their clean beauty experts really are experts, and they look to kind of guide you and explain what it means for a fragrance to be conscious. So they've been a great partner, and I can't wait to see what we do with them.
So with all of this success, now you just launched, you said in January?
Yes.
So brand new, brand new. Are there thoughts? I mean, first of all, take a deep breath, right? You've launched, you're successful, you've had sellouts. Are there thoughts of where you'd like to take this brand next? Will it only stay fragrance? Are you thinking about
Hmm.
other body care?
That is a good question. And my goal, I think we're early, right? So we're gonna have to see how everything works out. But my vision would be that we create scents for people in different walks of life. So some people are not, perfume wearers and will never be. But maybe they love using scent in terms of a candle or a room
Right.
diffuser. So I think our vision is to create different scent applications so that no matter where you are in your home or in your daily life, you can bring scent with you and you can experience the power of scent, because I think it can be really powerful to how you feel and to centering you or energizing you or making you, feel comforted. So for me, it's about how can we bring that experience to more people through different kind of scent things.
Yeah. And of course, and you mentioned at the beginning, and I've talked about this on the podcast a lot, scent memory is so pervasive, So if
It
you are
is.
setting something up and you have a fragrance attached to it, that memory is going to be, I think, so much stronger and so much easier to access.
Exactly.
I do want to say, so people can purchase the perfumes on your website.
Mhm.
You are going to be so gracious and generous. We were going to have a discount code for all of our listeners that will be in the show notes. But I have to say, one of the things that I'm really psyched that you did, and I have it right here, is this discovery kit. I think that if you are somebody who is looking to fragrance, also it's great if you're a traveler, right?
Yes.
You are getting 3 2 milliliter bottles of this. But I will say, look, you can see here, this is Dusk. It is
Yes.
done, done,
Good,
done,
it's meant to be
right?
used.
I've got Dusk, I've got Nostalgia, and then let's see. So you can see which ones were my favorite, and Moon Dust. So I've worn them all. I like them all. But you know what? You get quite a few wearings out of all of these too.
You
So I
do, and
feel
you
like
get
it's
to test, right, and see what works for you because you need to try it and give it a chance to sit and breathe and let the alcohol evaporate and see how it wears over a few hours, and if you still like it at the end.
and
Mhm.
like I said, and how many people come up to you and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what are you wearing?" And that's when I'm like,
Right?
"
Exactly.
all right,
You're like,
okay.
"This is
This
it."
is it. Keta, I just want to say this is so amazing. If people want to know more about your brand, where should they go?
They should go to our website, which is ourside.nyc. Since we're all about New York, and then we are on Instagram at ourside.nyc as well. And I'm the one answering a ton of those DMs and messages. So if you have thoughts, if you're like, oh, I know what scent you should make next, message me. I love to chat there, so that is another good place.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And of course, if you've got questions at home that you want me to pass on to this amazing, inspiring, badass woman, I'm always happy to do so. You can write me at hello@artbeautypodcast.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Art Beauty Podcast. I want to thank you so much for being on with us today and for creating these fabulous fragrances. Like I said, my new signature scent, Dusk.
Thank you so much.
We will see you all next Tuesday. Hopefully smell them just a little bit better. Bye.